Hello, this is Slayth with Combo of Rocks, bringing you another video deck tech of a deck that we built and sold by request. If you're not familiar with us, we make and sell custom budget EDH decks. These decks are light on the budget, so they may not be optimal or competitive, but they're definitely fun and centered around a central team that you can build on. Today we have Shalai and Hallar, which is 1 red, green, white for a 3/3 legendary creature elf angel. Flying and vigilance. Whenever one or more 1/1 counters are put on a creature you control, Shalai and Hallar deal that much damage to target opponent. Didn't realize how easy it was to assemble an infinite combo with this until I started building the deck. Basically, any creature that says whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on this creature, combos with giving Shalai and Hallar lifelink. So she would deal damage, gaining you life, putting a counter on the creature that gets a counter whenever you gain life, so on and so forth. So let's get right into the deck. Speaking of this combo, Heliod's Sun Crown does it by himself. 2 and a white for a 5/5 legendary enchantment creature god with indestructible. Isn't a creature unless your devotion is 5 or greater. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on a creature or an enchantment you control. 1 and a white gives a creature lifelink. Again, you want to give Shalai and Hallar lifelink, triggering Heliod's Sun Crown every time it does damage, putting a counter on a creature, triggering Shalai, so on and so forth. Ulash, the Hate Seed, 2 red, green for a 0/0 Hellion Hydra legendary. When it enters, put a 1/1 counter for each other red creature and a 1/1 counter for each other green creature. Pay 1 to remove a counter. It deals 1 damage to a target creature or create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. Works with Heliod, but because you have to pay a mana for that ability, not quite as effective for infinite. We also have Escape to the Wilds, 3 red, green for a sorcery. You can play an additional land this turn, exile the top 5 cards of your library. You can play cards exiled this way until the end of your next turn. Showdown of the Scalds, 2 red, white for an enchantment saga. The first one exiles the top 4 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You can play those cards. The next 2 chapters, whenever you cast a spell, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. We have Deafening Clarion, 1 red, white for a sorcery. Choose 1 or both, deal 3 damage to each creature or creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. Basri's Lieutenant, 3 and a white for a 3/4 Human Knight, Vigilance, Protection from Multicolored. When it enters, put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control. Whenever it or another creature dies, if it had a 1/1 counter on it, create a 2/2 white Knight creature token with Vigilance. We have Ajani Steadfast, 3 and a white for 4 Loyalty Ajani, +1. 1 target creature gets +1/+1, First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. -2, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty on each other planeswalker you control. -7, you get an emblem if a source would deal damage to you or planeswalker you control, prevent all but 1 of that damage. Mikaeus the Lunarch, X and a white for a 0/0 legendary human cleric, enters with X counters, tap it to put a counter on it, or tap it to remove a counter and put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. Exemplar of Light, one of those creatures that gets a counter whenever you gain life. 2 white for a 3/3 flying angel. Whenever you put a counter on it, draw a card. That triggers only once each turn. Doesn't matter if you're going infinite with Shalai and Hallar though. Contractual Safeguard, 2 and a white, instant addendum. If it's your main phase, put a shield counter on a creature you control. Choose a kind of counter on each creature you control. Put a counter of that kind on each other creature you control. Branching Evolution, 2 and a green for an enchantment. If 1 or more 1/1 counters will be put on a creature you control, twice that many 1/1 counters are put on that creature instead. Hardened Scales, 1 green enchantment. Again, if a 1/1 counter will be placed on a creature, you add an additional 1/1 counter. Renegade Crisis, 1 green for a 3/2 Beast Mutant with Evolve. When it evolves, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. Basilisk Collar, 1 mana equipment, 2 to equip. Equip creature has Death Touch and Lifelink. Again, Lifelink very important to give Shalai. Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Selesnya Signet, Talisman of Unity, Drool Signet, Talisman of Impulse, Talisman of Conviction, Boros Signet, Rocco Cabaretti Caterer, X and Naya for a 3/1 legendary elf druid. As it enters, if you cast it, you can search for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it on the battlefield and shuffle. Good for finding one of our combo creatures. Grumgoli the Generous, 1 green red for a 3/3 legendary goblin shaman. Each other non-human creature enters with an additional 1/1 counter on it. Invigorating Hot Springs, 1 red green for a enchantment, enters with 4 counters. Modified creatures have haste. You can remove a counter from it to put a 1 counter on a creature you control. Activate as a sorcery and only once each turn. Domri's Ambush, red green sorcery, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Then that creature deals damage equal to its power to a creature or planeswalker you don't control. Trelisara, Moon Dancer, green white for a 2/2. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on it and scry 1. Conclave Mentor, green white for a 2/2. If 1 or more counters will be placed on a creature, that many +1 are put on it instead. When it dies, you gain life equal to its power. Botanical Brawler, green white for a 0/0 elemental warrior with trample, enters with 2 1/1 counters. If 1 or more 1/1 counters are placed on another permanent, if it's the first time a 1/1 counter has been placed on that permanent, put a 1/1 counter on Botanical Brawler. Good Fortune Unicorn, 1 green white for a 2/2 unicorn. As another creature enters, put a 1/1 counter on that creature. Enduring Scale Lord, 4 green white for a 4/4 flying dragon. If 1 or more 1/1 counters are put on another creature, put a 1/1 counter on Enduring Scale Lord, which combos with Wildwood Scourge, X and a green for 0/0 Hydra, enters with X counters on it. Whenever 1 or more counters will be placed on a non-Hydra creature, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. So this with Enduring Scale Lord, they keep seeing the other and triggering and putting 1/1 counters. As Shalai is in play, you can deal as much damage as you want as these 2 creatures grow infinitely. Safe Right Quest, green-white hybrid, search for a forest or plains, then put it in your hand, then shuffle. Cleric class, 1 white enchantment class. If you would gain life, gain that much life +1. You can level it up for 3 and a white. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Again, comboing with Shalai when she has lifelink. And then 4 and a white. Whenever this class becomes level 3, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You gain life equal to its toughness. Envoy of the Ancestors, 2 and a white for a 2/3 human cleric with Outlast for a white. Modified creatures you control have lifelink, so we would want to put a counter on our Shalai to give her lifelink with this card. Spirit Link, 1 white. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life, which is similar to lifelink, but not quite. It does go on the stack. And then also, if you put this on one of your opponent's creatures, that creature will gain life for you. Johnny's Pride Mates, 1 and a white for a 2/2 cat soldier. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Celestial Unicorn, 2 and a white for a 3/2. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on Celestial Unicorn. Abdan Battle Priest, very similar to the other card. Each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has lifelink with Outlast for a white. It is a 3 and a white 3/2. Take Up the Shield, 1 and a white instant, put a 1/1 counter on target creature, gains lifelink and indestructible until end of turn. Generous Gift, 2 and a white instant, destroys any permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. Stroke of Midnight, 2 and a white instant, destroys a non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 1/1 white human creature. Explosive Entry, 1 and a red, destroys up to 1 target artifact, put a 1/1 counter on one target creature. Rosie of Cotton South Lane, 2 and a white for a 1/1 as it enters, create a food token. It is a legendary halfling peasant. Whenever you create a token, put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control other than Rosie, which combos with Scurry Oak. 2 and a green for a 1/2 with Evolve. Whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are put on Scurry Oak, you may put a 1/1 green squirrel creature token onto play. Again, triggering Rosie, she can put a 1/1 counter on Scurry Oak. It creates a token, which then again triggers Rosie. This also works with Ivy Lane Denizen. 3 and a green for a 2/3 elf warrior. Whenever another green creature enters, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Again, Scurry Oak makes green squirrel tokens, so he can put a 1/1 counter on Scurry Oak, creating a squirrel token, again triggering Ivy Lane Denizen, so on and so forth. We have Zhang Yinggu, Wild Grafter, 2 and a green for a 3 loyalty Yanggu. Whenever each creature with a 1/1 counter taps for a mana of any color, you can also -1 to put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Snakeskin Veil, 1 green instant, put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control, gains hexproof until end of turn. Gaia's Gift, 1 and a green instant, put a 1/1 counter on target creature, gains reach, trample, hexproof, and indestructible until end of turn. Stocking the Pantry, 1 green enchantment. Whenever you put a 1/1 counter on a creature, put a supply counter on this. You can pay 2 and remove a supply counter to draw a card. Inspiring Call, 2 and a green instant, draw a card for each creature with a 1/1 counter you control. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. Armorcraft Judge, 3 and a green for a 3/3 elf artificer. When it enters, draw a card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. Evolution Witness, 2 and a green for a 2/1 elf shaman mutant. 1 and a green adapts it for 2. Whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are placed on it, return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Travel Preparations, 1 and a green, put a 1/1 counter up to 2 target creatures with flashback for 1 and a white. Duskguard Captain, 2 and a green for a 2/3 with Outlast for a green. Each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has trample. Elysian Carotid, 1 and a green for a 1/1 plant. Adds a mana of any color if you tap it. It adds 2 mana of any color if you control a creature of power 4 or greater. Fertilid, 2 and a green for 0/0, enters with 2 1/1 counters. You can pay 1 and a green to remove a counter to search for a basic land, put on the battlefield tapped. Ordeal of Naya, 1 and a green for an enchantment. When an enchanted creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it, and then if it has 3 or more 1/1 counters, sacrifice this, and then you search for 2 basic lands, put them onto the battlefield tapped. Bushwhack, single green, searches for a basic or a creature you control, fights a creature you don't control. Utopia's Ball, 1 green, enchants a forest, then that forest taps for an additional mana of a chosen color. Fertile Ground, 1 and a green, enchants a land, and then that land taps for an additional mana. Expand the Sphere, 3 and a green, looks at the top 6 cards of your library, put 2 lands onto the battlefield tapped, the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If less than 2 lands are put onto the battlefield this way, proliferate equal to the difference. Ranger's Path, 3 and a green, searches for 2 forests, puts them onto the battlefield tapped. Broken Bond, 1 and a green, destroys an artifact enchantment, then put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. Stump Stop, 1 red-green hybrid. A creature you control deals damage equal to a creature or planeswalker you don't control. It also can be a tapped red-green land. Into some lands themselves, we have Cinder Glade, Mossfire Valley, Game Trail, Canopy Vista, Sungrass Prairie, Fortified Village, Sunscorched Divide, Clifftop Retreat, Fury Calm Snarl, Karn's Bastion, taps for colorless, 4 and a tap, proliferates. Exotic Orchard, Command Tower, Jungle Shrine, Captivating Cave. This one can be sacrificed for some mana to put 2 1/1 counters on a creature. Frozen Verge, that can be sacrificed to search for a forest and plains card. Redguard Stronghold, taps for green, white, sacrifice it, put a 1/1 counter on up to 2 target creatures. They gain vigilance and lifelink until end of turn. And then we just have some basic plains, mountains, and forests. That's the deck. I hope you enjoyed it, but we'll see you next time.